Hello, everyone. Welcome to LEAP, February 2018. I'm Michael Indeglio.
And I'm Sarah Viner.
And this time, everything's running. We have so many computers running today that we're trying to use all of the internet here at Schoology. We've got some great stuff today. We're going to chat a little bit about some information we want to share with you here from Schoology. And then our own Kellie Ady has a wonderful conversation with Rachel Murat around digital citizenship, which you can see our great T-shirt. And we have I'm a global digital citizen who can't speak today. And we're going to talk a little bit after the interview about what we're doing here at Schoology with our Digital Citizenship Challenge. And we'll walk you through what that is and how you can get involved. And we hope that you will, especially this LEAP audience. So that's what we've got on the docket. We want to start with some things happening here at Schoology, and I'm going to pass that off to you so I can share the links.
Awesome. So we have a few exciting things up on the docket this month. Hopefully you've already read about them because we now officially have our new web releases emails going out. So love being able to see those and not having to read through all that super techie jargon. So hopefully you guys have taken a look at that. That should be going out to all of your system admins. But really exciting is that we now have assessments available on the app. So if you are using tablets, if you're using iPads, there is some awesome content to be able to be done on the app. One of my favorites is that awesome highlight image question where you can draw directly onto an image, and it's really easy to do that on a phone or a tablet. So the fact that students can now take the assessment on the iPad or any of the apps is really fantastic. Lots of people excited about that. No authoring on the app. I would not recommend trying to make those big questions on the app yet. That's a little bit too complex. So there's a whole article about how you can do that that we've now posted to our handout. So do feel free to pop onto the support site. We have one about the iOS, and we have one about the Android setup for the app. And a few things to just mention, we've been putting out a ton of awesome content onto the blog as well. We have a fantastic team who runs the blog, including Dylan Rogers, and our very own Mike contributes all the time. So I definitely recommend jumping onto the blog to look at some of our most recent resources that we've been popping up. There are some really fantastic things up there, and we just posted a link into the chat as well. So jump onto that link too.
And I'll mention to join with that is, and I'm almost a little embarrassed to admit that I didn't know that this existed. So Dylan Rogers, who sort of curates, runs the blog, was letting me know that all of the webinars that we run for marketing and all of the leaps that happen and all of the kind of great multimedia content and some downloads and resources all get kind of consolidated and posted in one place. And I really didn't know much about it.
Yeah.
And so we're going to share that link right now. There's some great stuff you can download and use. It's all free. It's all for you. So that's really exciting. So I'm sharing that in the link now too. And I'm going to post all of these links along with the YouTube video that we post inside of the Schoology about Schoology LEAP. Wow, I'm sorry.
No, we got it. We got it.
I'm really not
I know what it means.
Firing on all cylinders this morning.
Hope everyone speaks Mike this morning. Very cool. Yeah, there's some great content on there, and it'll all be consolidated in one spot on YouTube in the LEAP playlist.
Speaking of, if you want to catch up on LEAPs,
how could I do such a thing?
We actually, right after we record them, boil them down, take out the bits that are sort of ridiculous, so probably the entirety of this, and post it back up on our YouTube and on a help page within the Help Center in Schoology for all of you to access. So I'm going to post those two links now so that you can always catch up on our beautiful faces, at least one of them, and the great stuff we talk about. So I'm going to post those links as well. And then I think there's one other item.
Super awesome. If you didn't have a chance to get into our LMS week last week, the team over here made a really incredible push for an entire week of webinars. We have the most incredible user base, including you guys. There are so many people out there doing fantastic things with Schoology. And last week, or was it already 2 weeks ago now, actually? It wasn't last week, I think. It was, oh no, it's Thursday. It was last week. We had a bunch of incredible people come in and join us to give all sorts of different ideas around how to roll out Schoology, around some implementation ideas, and what to do with an LMS in general. Pretty much the whole cycle of like do we need an LMS, all the way to now I've got Schoology, what do I do? So there are some fantastic resources that were put out there, and they were hour-long recordings. They were smack in the middle of the day, so some people caught them over their lunch, but some people didn't get a chance to see them. So they were all recorded, which is awesome news, just like these sleeps, and they are all being posted on our website too, our Schoology.com website, and we have a link to that Mike just posted in as well. So if you missed it, they're all online. Go take a look. There are some really fantastic ones, especially Wednesdays, run by Mike.
So, digital citizenship, what is it? How is it being used? And then how can you get involved? We really were trying hard to get Rachel Murat to join us on Leap this morning. We just couldn't make the scheduling work. So our own intrepid investigative reporter, Kellie Ady, from Schoology, had a great interview with her yesterday, and we're going to share that with you today. And I did my best to supplement the phone interview with some visuals that can be helpful. So we are going to now let you listen to Rachel and Kellie discuss digital citizenship. We'll open with a little bit of a primer of what digital citizenship is. So without further ado, let's get started.
My name is Rachel Murat. I am a teacher and tech integrator at Maine-Endwell High School. I currently teach AP Government and Politics, which is a college level class, economics, U.S. history, digital citizenship, and a Google Suite course. Digital citizenship is something that I learned about at a conference, and when I got back to school, I realized this is something we really need to be focusing on, because we as a district of leadership really emphasize our kids doing the right thing. We're getting to the point where we're at least understanding what digital citizenship is, at least where I am. And I felt like the students need to be showing their leadership online as well. So why aren't we asking kids to just start doing something, to produce things, to be out there, be role models, showing their peers how to act online and how not to act online, and to talk about being an upstander, and to talk about building the stuff that colleges want to see, so that they have positive things out there, because the best time to start is now. Obviously, the best time to start was probably 20 years ago, but the best time to start is now. And so if you can start making a difference in the way that kids think about what they post online, it then snowballs into greater things.
Rachel, I just want to thank you for taking the time out to talk to us today. We had kind of a big company launch, just talking about the importance of digital citizenship, and then we showed the video that we had, and I think people got really excited. In fact, if I had my camera, I would show you, we all got shirts that have like global digital citizenship on them. So you started a total wave here.
Well, that's exciting. Who doesn't love a shirt?
Yeah. So I'm just going to ask you first, could you just kind of tell us a little bit about, like, who you are, what you do, and kind of where you are in terms of just like, your journey with Schoology?
Okay, I am a 22-year veteran of teaching at Maine-Endwell High School, which is part of the Maine-Endwell Central School District, located just outside of Binghamton, New York. And I currently teach U.S. history, AP Government and Politics, economics, G Suite, and a DigCit class. And I am also the high school tech integrator. My journey with digital citizenship started, to be honest with you, I don't even know how many years ago it was at this point. But I went to a conference in Syracuse that Eric Scheninger was at, and he was talking about digital leadership. And I just got thinking about everything that he said about digital citizenship, and I really took it to heart, because that was really when, like, Twitter was coming around. It was before Instagram. Kids were still on Facebook because they hadn't, left it yet. And I really got thinking about how important it was for us to be teaching our kids how to act appropriately online. And so that was really where I started, was really evaluating what we were doing online, how we were using that space. And it stayed in that iteration of it for probably 2 years. And then a year and a half. And then I was on Twitter one morning, and as I like to do before I actually get out of bed in the morning, and I saw Jennifer Costa Todd's sketch note. Sylvia Duckworth did a sketch note of a conversation or blog post that Jennifer Costa did based on George Kouros's book, and talking about the migration from digital citizenship to digital leadership. And right then and there, my whole purpose in life changed, basically, because I started to think about all of the possibilities of the things that the kids could be doing after they evaluated what it was that they're doing and how they act online. And so we took that sketch note, and there are 5 characteristics on the left, which is characteristics of a digital citizen. And then there are 5 characteristics on the right, which are characteristics of what a digital leader does. And so now my course is, we have 20 weeks together. We spend the first 5 weeks evaluating, our own usage of social media and other things that we're doing online. And the first thing that they do is they Google themselves. And I hear 40 minutes of, oh my gosh, I didn't know that was online. And then we reflect, because I asked them first, like, I'm going to meet you for the first time online. And I've actually already gone through most of their social media by the time that I actually physically meet them. So I kind of have an idea of what's out there already. And so I asked them in a blog post to predict, what are you going to find? What is somebody that's meeting you online for the first time going to think? And then I have them Google themselves. And then they reflect about, what it is that they found, what people are going to think, do they need to change their habits? And that really kind of starts a conversation headed in the direction of being cognizant of what we are doing online. And then the next thing they do is they Google me, and they get really, really excited because they think they're going to find a whole bunch of dirt on me. And every semester they get annoyed because they don't find anything. And that starts a great conversation about, well, why don't you find anything? And so we talk about being purposeful about what we post online. And I am friends with most of their parents on social media, either because they are friends of mine, or I actually had their parents as students, which is happening more and more nowadays. And so I am seeing what their parents are posting online a lot. And that also is a good conversation, because they will come in and they're like, I'm so sorry that you saw what my mom posted online last night. And I'll say, well, did you guys have a conversation? And it always comes back to, yes, I told her that not everything that goes in her mind has to pop onto Facebook, Mom. Or, I told, because my one big saying is never make a permanent post on a temporary emotion. And I hear that from the kids a lot. And I was actually telling them a story that I actually had to take my own advice last night, because I got onto Facebook to check something, and I just saw a whole nasty stream of things that were being spewed from some parents. And I wanted to defend the district with something, and so I typed out this big long thing, and none of it was negative, but I also just didn't want to get attacked afterwards, so I just deleted it.
So how many kids take this class? Is it an elective? Is it, something that all kids do? Or?
Well, it is an elective at the high school. And to be honest with you, I'm going to be really excited the day that we don't have to teach it, because as a silo class, because I don't think that it needs to happen in a vacuum. I think that if you are an adult putting a device in front of a child, whether you are an educator or a parent, you need to be having discussions about appropriate ways to use the internet, and then also ways to be a leader online. But unfortunately, that's not happening right now. So I have about 25 kids per semester that take this class with me. But they are doing digital citizenship K through 8, I'm sorry. And those happen sporadically, but at least they're having the conversations, because when I first started doing this probably 5 or 6 years ago, nobody even knew what I was talking about. Like, there was so much deer in the headlights. And now I feel like you've at least heard of digital citizenship. Whether you can actually tell me what it is or not, might be a different story. But I think that more people are finally realizing that, I am an educator, and my job doesn't just say I teach English or I teach social studies. It means that if I'm putting a device in front of them, we need to talk about how they're using that device in a meaningful way and in a way that does not harm others.
I'm glad you brought up the fact that it actually is trickling down into other, grade levels. One question I had for you was, when you first brought this idea back, being that it hadn't been something that had been widely discussed, how did you get buy-in from other people?
Well, I am very lucky in the sense that my my principal and my superintendent, who actually was my principal before that, they know when I come into them with an idea that they're going to need to sit down, and it's probably going to be something completely outside of the box, but they know that I have the best interest of the district and the kids in mind, and 99% of the time they're on board with me about, you know, making a change or doing something a little bit differently. You know, we're always looking for new electives, and so when I went and explained this to them, they were like, wow, that really sounds like something, you know, that as we are increasing the devices in our building, because at the time I was the only teacher in high school that was one-to-one with a cart in my room, because I'm always the guinea pig as the tech integrator. So, I mean, now the kids hate the fact that my machines are 5 years old and they're not touchscreen and they're not yoga and, you know, these first world problems. But so I was the only one that had devices. And so because I was the one that had the devices, it made the most sense that I would be the one, you know, having these discussions and talking about digital citizenship. And it kind of just blossomed from there. I don't think that I have buy-in from all of the adults in the building, because we still have people that don't necessarily want anything to do with a computer to begin with at all. But I think that we are, as the growth of Schoology came into our district, I don't know, 4 years ago, I think. I was the one that piloted it. And so, you know, having online discussions and teaching kids about the fact that, you know, you can't take that post down necessarily unless, you know, it depends on how the teacher has set it up, but you can't edit it either, just like you can't edit a tweet and things like that. And so I think with our expanded use of Schoology, we have more teachers that are having those discussions.
I'm glad you actually pointed that out, because one thing I was going to ask you is this, you know, are you the only one who's actually tackling this, or are there people in your building actually kind of embracing this idea as well, and whatever is the most relevant way for them to fit it in?
Well, I don't necessarily know that they're using that terminology, but there definitely are discussions about the way that you act when you're posting things online, and how, you know, an email can be taken out of context because you're the one that adds the emotion to the email. And that if you're confused about something, you always go face-to-face to the person if you can. And you never know, because one of the things that I really stress with my kids from the second that I meet them is that a couple things. One is the room is the smartest person in the room. And so there's not one person in this room that doesn't make this room better. And so because of that, we need to rely on each other. But we also need to have each other's backs. And then the other thing is that every single thing that they do, doesn't matter what class it is in, has the ability to go outside of our walls, because I am constantly sharing things through my blog. I am tweeting things out. I'm putting pictures on Instagram for parents to see, on Facebook for parents to see. I am talking about them at conferences, at ed camps. I bring kids with me to ed camps. I bring kids with me to conferences, and they talk about what they're doing. And so I think that them knowing that it's not just my eyes on it, and that this is part of their digital footprint that they are starting to establish and their social brand, that they really need to up their game. And it's funny because the first time that I put something out and they're like, oh, wait a second, did actual people see that? And I'm like, well, I'm an actual person, but yes, actual people saw that. They're like, can I redo that? And I'm like, absolutely, you can redo that. So that really, I think, knowing that it's not just staying in our four walls, also makes them think twice about what it is that they're doing and what they're producing and how they're creating things.
So in the time that you've kind of had this going, just with your classes, what would you say has been like the most successful about it? Like what kind of changes have you really noticed as an adult in that space?
I have kids who come to me on a regular basis, I mean, as recently as yesterday, with things that are concerning on social media, and they want to be upstanders. And I think that in some instances, for example, yesterday, it's important that they are upstanders for their friends who are in bad situations. But I think it's also important that they're saying, I'm not going to be part of the negativity, and I'm not going to be part of the echo chamber when it comes to treating people poorly online. So I've seen that change. I've also seen, it still amazes me even to this day when I show them all of the things that I learn on Twitter and that you can use it for educational purposes. They are completely dumbfounded. And I think that they see social media differently, and it's not just something that you sit there blankly, mindlessly staring at. It's something that you can actually learn from, and that you can put things out on there so that people are learning from you as well. I used to take offense when the kids would stop following me on Twitter. And then I realized I use Twitter for something different than they do. And so, I think it's a great compliment when a kid walks in your room and you're like, Murat, you just blew up my feed with your learning last night. I'm like, okay, So I think that those are two of the major shifts. And then I think, for example, we did 2 Twitter chats that were moderated by my kids during class, and we did one back in the fall with hashtag positively kind, and which was kind of a takeoff on, I don't know if you've seen our documentary Positively Social.
If someone met you online for the first time, what would they think about you?
When's the last time you thought about how you're using your device?
Do you think about how your online actions represent you?
How are your children representing themselves online?
You're a good digital citizen, right?
Are you positive?
It's on YouTube. It's 12 minutes, and it's been shown all around the world. And we had a person from our BOCES helping do the videography of it, but other than that, it's all kid run, like the interviews that were done, the deciding what gets put in, what gets taken out, things like that. But so it was kind of like, how do we combine Positively Social and the fact that we want to promote positivity online, and they came up with Positively Kind. And so we had a Twitter chat, and that Twitter chat had Positively Kind being the #1 trending hashtag for that half an hour from 7:45 until 8:15. And when I did the Storify, we had 1,400 tweets in that half an hour. And wow. They wanted to map it out. They got so excited, and it was a Friday. So on Monday, we got into My Maps, and we had 5 continents, and the kids were just like in awe of the impact that they had in that small half an hour. And that conversation actually continued into the weekend, and the kids came back, and like that's all that they were talking about on Monday was, somebody tweeted me from, Australia, and China was telling me about what they were doing, and they showed it to their kids, and they were just really excited about the impact that they could have. And so when they saw what being positive online could lead to, I think that really made it click for them.
Yeah, that's amazing. So I know you talked about like what you've done like so far, and you've got this curriculum and you have some structures around that. Let's say you're somebody who's like just starting to think about this. Where would you recommend that they actually start?
Well, they first need to start with themselves, to be honest with you.
Okay.
They need to examine how they're using social media, because I am 110% proponent of you have to walk the walk. So if you want kids to be lifelong learners, you have to do that. If you want them to use social media in a positive way, you need to model that. So I think I would start with myself, and I would really look at how I'm using it. Do I have a filter? Am I being kind online? And then once I go there, I would maybe start small with a little project in class, where the kids could display their learning, create something digital or take pictures of something that they made that was not digital and put it on Instagram or put it on a blog, or, depending on how old the kids are. have them post it on their own social media, if they have social media, because I always have kids. I had 2 or 3 kids almost every semester that take DigSit that have no social media presence whatsoever, and it's totally fine. They do not have to have social media. They can tweet on my account, which is, good practice with digital citizenship. So I think I would start there. And then it would really kind of depend on what my goal was. Like, is my goal to have them be digital leaders? Is it to show off their learning? Is it to show them what they can learn online? I think it would depend on my focus.
Okay. And when you talk with kids now about these ideas in digital citizenship, do you think that learning sticks with them after they leave? Like, think this is something that really kind of changes their perspective?
Well, yes, I do, but we're all human. Every one of us makes mistakes, even though, I preach this to the choir. Every once in a while I slip up, something gets at me and I, don't have that filter for a second. But I mean, I think that the kids that I've been doing this with, so the kids that I first had, I think they have just graduated from college. And are entering the workforce, if I remember correctly. And they, it's funny because I am still in contact with a lot of them, and a lot of them have told me that they are thankful that they started being mindful of their social presence back in 9th and 10th grade, because now when they go to apply for a job, they don't have to worry about, their social media, because a lot of, I always have, during DigSit semester, I have a D1 coach either come in or do a Google Hangout. I have an admissions director from a college do a Google Hangout with us and talking about, we actually are looking at your social media. And we talk about how in different walks of life, the bar is at a different level. So if I'm working in an office, I might be able to post whatever I want online. If I'm going to be in law enforcement, or I'm going to be a teacher, or a principal or a nurse or something like that, then the bar is set a little bit higher, because and people are like, the kids are like, well, that's not fair. And I'm like, well, it is fair because of what I do. I understand that I'm under a microscope. Right. But you do run into kids. It's funny because we held an ed camp at Binghamton University for pre-service teachers, and my superintendent came and he was talking about, what he looks at social media wise, and, what is an okay thing and what's definitely a red flag, and how some people have not even been given a chance at an interview because of what's on social media. And they were floored. They were like, but that's my own personal life. And, we kind of try to explain to them that I'm sorry, but that's not how this works anymore.
Right. So you made this comment earlier that it'd be great when you don't have to teach us anymore.
Right.
But that's probably not imminent. What do you think, what's next for you in terms of digital citizenship? Do you have anything that you're going to try that's new or different? Any new directions that you'd like to see it go?
Well, every semester we do things differently because of what's in the news or what the kids are interested in. For example, this past semester, and this is actually where the chat for Positively Kind came up, we were doing our study of haters and trolls because the kids didn't really understand what a hater or a troll was, but they've come in contact with them. They just didn't know that was what they were and what the intent of them was. And so they were finishing up their projects and they were due on Monday. Well, Sunday night into Monday were the Vegas shootings. And so we went online to look at like the Los Angeles, I think Times it is, on their website. And at the point, that was so soon after it that we didn't know who the victims were. We didn't know the circumstances. We didn't know how many people had passed away. And they were looking at the comments and they just sat there, and some of them started crying. Some of them it was dead silent in my room. And some of them just sat there with their jaws open. They could not believe the hatred that was being spewed toward these people. And we didn't even know who they were yet. Yeah. So they said, you know what, we're done. We're done with the negativity. So we brainstormed that day, and our sole focus for the whole entire week was being as positive as we possibly could and spreading it to as many people as we wanted to. And that, I mean, we got all of that. We did something every single day. We did a Google Hangout with the elementary school. We were doing random acts of kindness. We were doing, social media shout outs. And then it culminated in that chat, and the kids just felt so much better because they felt like we actually did something to make a difference. So my goal really for that class is to help the kids be better digital leaders than they were when they got there. And so I can't really say I want to do X, Y, and Z because I don't necessarily know which group of kids I'll have next. Does that make sense?
Yeah,
and
totally.
what will be happening, and all the kids are in different levels, and so their social media usage and their social media awareness. And so once I meet the kids and get to know them, we together design tasks. I don't design tasks by myself. When we design tasks, they are designed in a way where everybody has to show growth in their digital leadership. And for some kids, it's, I just made a Twitter account and I'm going to do something positive. For other kids, it's, giving shout outs. For other kids, it just depends on what it is. But I think that it's most important to make it personalized to where they are and how they can personally grow.
I think what I was so impressed by hearing you talk about that is I think a lot of times it's easy or maybe simple to approach digital citizenship with like, well, I taught this lesson and then, that's it, it's done. And it sounds like what's really happening there is a real shift in culture of not just like not cyberbullying, but being that positive voice, shedding positivity. I think that's really amazing.
So if you go to my blog, which is spartansocialstudies.blogspot.com, put in there the digital leadership blog post, because at the end of the semester, they have to invite 3 people in, and it could be a parent, it could be a sibling, a friend, a teacher, an administrator, a community member, whatever. So there are days where we have, an extra 30 people in my room. And then I'm also broadcasting on Periscope. And so there are days where I have 400 or 500 extra people watching. And
Wow.
They have to present evidence that they have transitioned from being just a digital citizen to being a digital leader. And then the people in the audience are evaluating on a Google form and giving them feedback about whether they think that they've actually met those criteria. And so the kids can use whatever evidence they want from the semester to meet each of those criteria, and they can use whatever platform they want. And so I want to continue doing that. I just want to kind of keep challenging the kids to continue to grow. And one of the things that I always make sure that the kids understand is that I'm in this to learn as well. And so we kind of make it a joint deal that they're learning and I am learning right along with them.
So my last question for you, because I know we're running out of time today, are there any favorite resources that you think we should share during the webinar tomorrow?
If you just Google digital citizenship to digital leadership sketchnote, it'll pop up and it's right there. And that's very important to share with them, because a lot of people think we have to teach block and ban, and we can't let them do this and we can't let them do that, and if we just take their phones away. So I would encourage them to seek out resources that help them where they are, but challenge them to get to a better place. Does that make sense?
Okay. Yeah. And
just one more. I have one more resource for them is Jennifer Costa-Todd's book, Social Leadia. So it's Leadia instead of media. I think that's also a great resource. And the reason that that's a great resource is because it doesn't just talk about theory. It actually shows you how that theory is being played out in classrooms around the world. And I think that's really what the teachers are missing. Like, the teachers are hearing, well, you should be doing this and you should be doing this, but they can't wrap their brains around how to make it work in an English class or a French class, or you know what I'm saying? And so that's why that book is great.
Yeah, and Rachel, again, thank you so much. We just so appreciate your time and your willingness to just share what you're doing and, you know, really kind of help us push this conversation into some kind of new areas. So thank you so much for today.
I just love to share what my kids are doing because it's not about me, it's about them. I'm just the vehicle that helps them get to where they need to be. And so I think that it was their vision that had this social or positively social come out of it. It was their vision that we held a Digital Citizenship Summit at our district last year. It's their vision that gets them to go to, because they travel, we call it the road show. Of kids that travel to neighboring districts. And, you know, I went out to Utah for the National Digital Citizenship Summit, and I took kids with me to present on what they're doing. And so, yeah.
Thanks, Rachel. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you. Have a great day.
Kelly, how are you today?
Hey, doing well. How are you guys?
Excellent. That was a great interview. Any takeaways or anything from your conversation with her that didn't make the final cut that you'd like to bring up?
I think I really appreciated that whole perspective of going from digital citizenship to digital leadership, and I think she brought that out, you know, in the interview. But I was just so impressed with the fact that it's so student directed. And they have such ownership over what happens in their own digital spaces. And I just love the fact that, you know, Rachel's such a great part of our community. And I think she represents actually a lot of good that's actually happening in our Schoology community about digital citizenship. It's certainly not a new topic.
Yeah, and incredibly timely, you know, the conversation about keeping social media discourse positive, and about and she also mentioned, you know, if you see something, say something, and about being an upstander. And I think those are all things that, you know, in light of recent events specifically, is really important to point out that, you know, sometimes you can affect the change instead of waiting for it. And I think that that's an opportunity here for us to sort of continue to push through.
Right.
So,
totally agree.
So I think that we can segue a bit into what are we doing here at Schoology to sort of push the idea, not just wear the T-shirt and talk the talk, but to do as Rachel says and walk the walk. So I wanted to give you the floor here for a moment to talk about one of our digital citizenship initiatives here at Schoology.
Sure. And I really feel like I need to shout out to people in the community before I go into that part of it, just because, as I mentioned, we have so many people that have already shared resources in our public resources area. I know folks like, you know, Bob Schutz has shared an entire course that he does. And I think you guys put the link to the public resources area up there already. But if you know, just do a search in our public resources for digital citizenship, you'll see some really amazing things that are already available for our Schoology folks to tap into. But what we're doing here at Schoology, and this just launched yesterday officially, is something we're calling the Digital Citizenship Challenge. And it actually was inspired by Rachel Murat, which is why we interviewed her for the segment today. Our exec, or I guess he's our EVP of marketing, Ivan, went to visit the school, and he was so impressed with the digital citizenship part of what Rachel does that he came back to the company and said, we really need to gather our crowdsource, you know, what we can do to really make an impact in this particular topic, because it really resonated with him. So we've actually launched this digital citizenship campaign, and the link is in the chat area now. When you go to that area, basically what it is it's an invitation for any educator to become part of the conversation and to contribute resources that can be shared widely and distributed widely to make the greatest impact we can about becoming positive digital citizens. And so there's two ways that people can actually participate in this. One of them is that they can contribute the resources, and we actually relied pretty heavily on Common Sense Media's structure around digital citizenship, their curriculum. They've got, you know, 8 major focus areas. So if people want to contribute a resource, they would select one of those areas and then contribute that. And it's going to go basically to a panel of judges who will take a look at that resource and then kind of figure out, like, what's the best one that we think will make the best impact. And the person who gets the most, you know, kind of upvotes on that will be given tickets to Next, which is a hot commodity. And then also we're creating a digital citizenship council, just kind of our users in Schoology to have this continue. So our digital citizenship challenge goes from now until mid-March, but we really don't want the conversation to stop then. So we're going to obviously try to perpetuate having good resources and continuing to add things that are relevant for our community. And one of the most exciting things for me about this is that the Digital Citizenship Challenge, while it's being hosted on the Schoology website, is not just for Schoology users. Any educator can go on and contribute resources. We're just collecting those things on our website, and then we'll be hosting those kind of in a central location for later. And when you look at the participation, something that's interesting, and Michael is showing this right now on the screen, we've already had 410 educators who've committed to either sign up for the challenge or have committed to actually put that into action. So even if you don't want to contribute something, you can still pledge that I'm going to take an idea from this and I'm going to really try to make an impact in my school or my organization. So when we ask people to participate, we ask how many students do you think your initiative or your goal will impact? And we already have hopefully a projected impact of over 300,000 students that we want to see affected by this. So I'd encourage you, if you're so inclined, to sign up for that challenge. Contribute a resource that you think would really be helpful for helping move into the digital positivity that Rachel talked about and that digital leadership. We'll be using a hashtag. There's already the hashtag for #DigCit. We're going to add the word challenge at the end of that. So if you also want to spread the word on social media, that would be fantastic. Again, just to keep the conversation going in as many kind of social vehicles and areas and spaces that we can.
Excellent. So we encourage everyone in the chat, in this small LEAP community, and to spread the word. We really are trying to make an impact as widely as possible. So that's one of the things we're doing here, and so we want to hear from you. What are you doing? You can do that through the challenge. You can do that through the chat right now. Rachel had mentioned, and we'll say again, while she can't be here for our sort of Q&A today, she did say that if anyone wants to engage with her, they can do so through the blog, or I think her main preferred channel is Twitter, and that's @Mrs. Murat, and I'll share that in the chat once again. Kellie, I wanted to turn to you just for a minute as we'll kind of open the floor for any questions. I wanted to, I'm going to throw you a curveball. I didn't prepare you for this. We talked a lot about social media. We talked a lot about, Rachel's experience. And a few nights ago, I attended the Isaac Asimov Memorial panel debate on artificial intelligence. I'm so glad I could say that properly.
Well done.
And one of the things that got brought up, one of the main questions was about, the fear of AI overtaking the humans. That's sort of the main thing. And that, thankfully, appears to be very far away. But more immediate is the question of bots and about misinformation being spread and very quickly. And also the intelligence is being developed very quickly that these bots are able to actually create, let's use the hot term, fake news. So can you speak to the importance in a digital citizenship sort of context as to providing students the ability to critically analyze and critically think, to kind of separate fact from fiction, and the importance of what you post and what you share, and how that can actually you can be a digital citizen as well?
Well, I think again, this is actually not anything particularly new. Alan November published a book, years ago about web literacy for educators, and it basically had a couple of websites that looked completely legitimate that he would use kind of instructionally to say, and I'm sure some of you have seen this, and had I known you were going to ask me this, Michael, I would have had the title link ready to go. But it was a website that was basically about the vanishing tree octopus, and it looks completely valid. And so the whole exercise was having kids go through and vet whether that content was real. Well, that has always been around, but I think, as you've mentioned, it's gotten much more sophisticated in the way that misinformation is spread. So I think that one of the things that we need to really do is make sure that we're teaching kids, and I know that we focus on cyberbullying and it's incredibly important, but there are other aspects of digital citizenship that are also something that we really need to think about. And one of those is, are you able to discern what is actually a valid source of information versus what isn't? And I don't know if people are familiar with Project Tomorrow. They have something called Speak Up Ed, and it's a survey they give out annually. They've been doing this since 2003. And I happened to go to a session at FETC that was hosted by Project Tomorrow. And for the first time ever, they're actually asking questions about digital citizenship and how kids learn about that. But one of the interesting things that they had as a statistic was how few students can actually discern between what is truth and what isn't when looking at an online resource. So I think the more that we can make students aware of the ways that we can be manipulated, the better off we are in helping them to be good critical thinkers about the information that they are, seeing on a daily basis.
The talk by Alan November, and he was talking at our next conference back in 2014 about who owns the learning. So I think that's probably recorded and still online too if we have it available. And
something else about Alan November. Sorry, Zara, I didn't mean to interrupt you there. But one of the things that he also wrote recently, it wasn't that recent, maybe 2011. He interviewed somebody, and I think it was from a global banking organization. Again, I don't have that at the ready. Apologies for not citing my source correctly. Speaking of digital citizenship, but the question he asked, the question he asked, and this was the CEO, was, "What's the most important skill you want students to come to you with coming out of educational institutions?" And his answer was empathy. And Alan November's point was, one of the most critical skills we can teach right now is empathy for others. And, obviously, in light of what happened, recently, the tragedy that happened in Florida, I think that that's all part of this bigger conversation of, what is really important to get across to students now who are in this sometimes very fast moving and, sometimes scary digital space.
And that was the head of HSBC, a London-based bank.
Thank you, Zara and Google.
21st century ago. Yeah, that was not me. That was Google.
Okay.
We're trying to do a lot of cross-referencing whilst the fire alarm is going off, so we apologize. So once again, just to reiterate, I hope this has been an enlightening chat for everyone. I know just listening to you and Rachel yesterday have that interview was really sort of fascinating to me. I think it's, we often speak about how quickly moving the digital space is and how we're all sort of finding our way together. And I think that Rachel brings it up as a really important point too. This is no longer a dictated educational time. We are all in this together. We're learning together, we're growing together, and we're exploring together. And I think that it's a really exciting time because sort of the rules are being established now, and the strategies are being developed. And that's why I think the Schoology Global Digital Citizenship Challenge is really important, because it's allowing us to collate and work together as a community to gather resources and to really make a stab at establishing some processes moving forward.
And if you did enjoy the interview from Rachel, I'd really encourage you to reach out to her on Twitter. According to her, she's on it 24/7. And I think she'd really love to hear, just some feedback because she couldn't join us today in person.
Ladies, it's been wonderful sharing today with you. I look forward to our next leap together. And with that, we will say farewell. And we hope everyone has a great Thursday.